I thought my college fund was my future. But when my sister stole it, my parents told me I needed to understand her needs. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. How could they justify her betrayal? But I wasn't going to let this slide. It was time for a reckoning. My name is Olivia, and I had always been the responsible one. I spent my whole life saving every penny, working part-time jobs, and sacrificing my social life to build a future. My college fund was my pride and joy, a promise I made to myself to escape this small town, to create a better life. I had worked hard, planned everything, and now, at 18, I was finally on the verge of achieving my dreams. Until I found out my sister, Emily, had taken it. I was sitting in my room one afternoon, going over some scholarship applications, when I noticed my savings account had a zero balance. I didn't believe it at first. Maybe the bank made a mistake, I thought. But when I called, the cold response from the bank officer made my stomach drop. "I'm sorry, miss. Your account has been emptied." I hung up, my hands shaking. This couldn't be real. It had to be a mistake. But I already knew who had done it. Emily. I called, walking into her room. She was sitting on her bed, scrolling through her phone. She looked up at me, her expression innocent, as if nothing was wrong. "What?" she asked, feigning confusion. "You took it, didn't you?" My voice trembled. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest. "You took my college fund." Her face flickered for just a second before she leaned back and shrugged. "I needed it more than you," she said, matter-of-factly. I felt like I'd been slapped. You stole it, Emily," I managed to say, the words barely leaving my mouth. "I've worked my whole life for that money. Do you even understand what you've done?" She didn't look guilty. She didn't look apologetic. Instead, she sat there, unmoved, like I was the one being unreasonable. "You don't get it, Liv," she said, her voice quiet now, almost condescending. "I've been struggling. You don't know what it's like." I couldn't believe it. She was justifying it. She had taken something that wasn't hers, something that was meant to secure my future, and she expected me to just accept it. My chest tightened, the anger and heartbreak rising within me. "You didn't even think about how this would affect me. I've been saving for years. You just took it all without even asking." "I needed it," she repeated, like it was the only reason I should understand. "You're fine. You'll get another scholarship or something." I stared at her, completely speechless. How could she do this? She didn't even care. She didn't understand the magnitude of what she'd taken from me. I walked out of her room without another word. The tears were threatening, but I fought them back. I couldn't let her see how deeply she had cut me. I went to my parents, hoping they would take my side. I had to believe they would. They had to. "Mom, Dad." I rushed into the living room, but as soon as I started explaining what Emily had done, my mom just sighed. "Olivia, calm down," she said, her tone dismissive. "Emily's been struggling lately. You have to understand that." My mouth went dry. "What? No. She stole from me. My future, my college fund. You don't get it." But my dad just looked at me with a tired expression, like this was just another petty argument. "She's your sister, Liv. She needs help. You need to understand her needs." I was speechless. The words rang in my ears, and for a second, everything went silent. "You're taking her side?" I asked, barely able to hold back the tears. "You're defending her, after everything she's done?" My parents exchanged a look, their expressions unreadable, before my dad sighed. "We understand you're upset, but this isn't the end of the world. She needed it more than you right now." I felt the anger welling up inside me. How could they not see this? How could they not understand that I was the one who had worked for this, who had planned every step to make it out? It wasn't just about money, it was about respect. It was about my future. I stood there, completely floored, while my parents brushed me off. They didn't understand. They didn't care. They were making excuses for her, and all I wanted was someone to see me. The tears I had been holding back finally started to fall. I had been robbed. By my own sister. And instead of standing by me, my family was justifying it. The anger in my chest boiled over, but so did the heartbreak. This was supposed to be my chance. And now it was gone. I can't believe this, I whispered, more to myself than to them. I can't believe you're choosing her over me. I walked out of the room, my heart heavy with betrayal. I didn't know how to fix this. I didn't know if I could. But one thing was clear, I wasn't going to let Emily's selfishness ruin everything I had worked for. I needed to figure out how to get my money back, and more than that, I needed to understand why my family couldn't see my pain. The days after I found out Emily had stolen my college fund felt like a blur. I couldn't focus on anything else. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that empty account balance. My heart would race, my stomach would churn, and all I could think was how unfair it was. And how my family wasn't seeing it. I tried to talk to my mom again, but the conversation always ended the same way, her defending Emily, telling me to understand her needs. It wasn't like I didn't get it. I knew Emily had her struggles, but this, taking my future, no. There was no excuse. I decided to confront her. Maybe if I talked to her directly, if I understood why she did it, maybe I could at least get an apology. I walked into her room, my stomach twisting with both anger and nervousness. Emily, we need to talk, I said, standing by her door. She didn't even look up from her phone. What now? She mumbled, barely acknowledging me. I took a deep breath and walked over to her bed, sitting across from her. You took my money, I started, my voice low but firm. You took my college fund. You knew how important it was to me. Finally, she looked up, but her expression wasn't remorseful. It was almost indifferent. I told you, I needed it more than you, she said, shrugging. No, Emily. You didn't need it. You took it because you knew I wouldn't fight you. The words came out sharper than I intended. And now, Mom and Dad are defending you. They're saying I should just get over it. Do you even hear yourself? Emily's face twisted in frustration. I didn't have a choice, Liv. You don't get it. You've always been the perfect one. The one with all the opportunities. I've never had anything handed to me, okay? I've been struggling. I stared at her. We've both struggled. But that doesn't mean you steal from me, Emily. I've worked for this money. I've worked for my future, and now I have nothing. She sat back, crossing her arms. You don't get it. You don't know what it's like to be me. I've always been in your shadow, Liv. I've always been second. Why should you get everything? I wanted to scream at her. But instead, I stayed calm. You've always been second to me because you keep choosing to be. You keep making excuses. I've always supported you, Emily, but this is too much. I don't even know who you are anymore. Her eyes flickered with something. Guilt. Regret. But she quickly masked it, like she didn't want to show me that side. I'm sorry, okay? But you'll get over it. You'll find a way. You always do. My chest tightened. That's the problem. I've always been the one to pick up the pieces. But not this time. Not anymore. I stood up, my mind racing. This wasn't just about the money. It was about my own sense of self. I realized then that I couldn't keep sacrificing for Emily, for anyone. If my family wasn't going to stand by me, I needed to stand up for myself. Don't expect me to forgive you, Emily, I said, my voice steady. And don't expect me to fix this for you. I'm done being the one who's always there to save the day. She didn't respond, and I didn't wait for her to. I walked out of her room, my heart pounding in my chest. The anger was still there, but it was mixed with something else now, determination. I was going to get my money back. I was going to make sure Emily faced the consequences. And more than that, I was going to prove to myself that I was strong enough to fight for what I deserved. I thought about going back to my parents, but I knew it would be pointless. They weren't going to listen to me. They had already chosen sides. So I made a decision. I would take this into my own hands. I wasn't going to let my family tear me down. Not anymore. I couldn't just sit by and let Emily get away with what she'd done. I had tried to reason with her, but she was too caught up in her own world, too selfish to see the consequences of her actions. I couldn't let it slide, especially not after what Mom and Dad had said. They were all too quick to justify Emily's behavior, too blind to see that this wasn't just about money, it was about respect. My respect. So, I made up my mind. It was time to confront my parents. I was going to make them see what she had done, how much it had hurt me. I wasn't going to beg for their approval anymore. I had to stand up for myself, even if they didn't want to listen. I waited for the right moment. When my parents were sitting in the living room after dinner, I walked in, my heart pounding in my chest. They looked up, surprised to see me standing there, but they didn't ask what was wrong. I knew they didn't think anything was wrong, they thought this was just another family squabble. But I wasn't here to fight. I was here to show them something. I need to talk to you, I said, my voice steady despite the knot in my stomach. Mom looked up from her book, her usual smile fading into something more neutral. What is it, honey? About Emily, I said, forcing myself to make eye contact. And about my college fund. Dad shifted uncomfortably in his chair. We've already talked about this, Olivia, he said, his voice tight. Emily made a mistake. She's been through a lot. You need to understand that. Understand? I almost laughed, though it was more out of disbelief than amusement. How am I supposed to understand this, Dad? She stole my future. She took the one thing that was supposed to help me get out of this town, get the education I've been working for. And you're telling me I need to understand? There was a long pause. Mom and Dad exchanged a look, and I could tell they were trying to figure out how to respond without making things worse. But that's just it, they didn't get it. They didn't understand how much this hurt me. How much I had sacrificed to get here, only to have it stolen by my own sister. You don't get it, I said, the words bitter in my mouth. I worked hard for that money. I saved every penny. And now it's gone. Do you even understand what that means for me? Mom stood up, her expression softening as she walked toward me. We understand you're upset, Olivia, she said, her voice soothing. But Emily's been going through a lot. She needed it more than you. You can find another way to pay for school, sweetheart. I felt my chest tighten. You're choosing her again, aren't you? You're still making excuses for her. When does it end? When do I get to be the one you care about? I could feel the tears building, but I fought them back. I wasn't going to cry. I was done being the one who always stayed silent, always took the backseat. I was done being invisible in my own family. Dad sighed, rubbing his face in frustration. Olivia, we don't want to fight with you. We just. You can't keep making excuses for her, I shouted, my voice cracking. She stole from me, and I'm supposed to just get over it. You're letting her ruin everything I've worked for, and you're asking me to forgive her just like that. Just because she's your daughter too. The words hung in the air like a weight. I had never been this direct with them before, never let my frustration out like this. But I was done being the quiet one. I was done letting them walk all over me. You need to understand something, I said, my voice steady now, despite the anger and hurt still boiling inside me. I don't need her approval. I don't need any of you to tell me it's okay. What she did was wrong, and I'm not just going to sit back and let it slide. There was a long silence. Finally, Dad spoke, his voice softer than before. We didn't mean to hurt you, Liv. We didn't see it the way you do. Well, now you do, I said, standing up taller. And now, I'm going to make sure I get my future back. You can either help me, or you can stay out of my way. I turned to leave the room, my heart racing. I wasn't sure what would happen next, but I knew one thing, I wasn't backing down. I wasn't going to let Emily's selfishness, or my parents' blindness, take away everything I had worked for. This was my fight now, and I wasn't going to lose. After the confrontation with my parents, things were different, though not in the way I expected. I thought they'd finally see the depth of my frustration, but instead, they seemed to retreat into their own world. I didn't expect them to change overnight, but a part of me had hoped they'd come around. Instead, I was left with a decision. I had to take control of this situation, no one else would. Days passed, and I couldn't stop thinking about Emily, about how she'd stolen my future without a second thought. It was more than just the money, it was the betrayal, the feeling that I was always in the background, always expected to be the one to clean up messes. I wasn't going to let this be another one of those situations. I started researching, figuring out how I could get my money back. I made calls to the bank, asking for records. I contacted legal services to see if there was a way to legally force Emily to return the money. The process wasn't easy, and it took weeks of frustrating paperwork and phone calls. But I didn't care. The more I worked, the more I realized this wasn't just about getting my money back, it was about proving to myself that I was capable of standing up for what I deserved. Then came the day I received a phone call from the bank. The money had been returned. The bank had traced the transactions and made it clear that the funds had been transferred without my consent. It wasn't a huge victory, but it was one step closer. I immediately called my parents. They didn't answer right away, so I left a voicemail. "I've gotten the money back," I said, the words feeling like a weight had been lifted. "I don't expect you to understand why this mattered so much to me, but I'm proud of myself for doing it. I did it without your help, without anyone's help. And I'm not asking for your approval anymore. I'm done being the one who's always ignored, always compared. This was my fight, and I won." I didn't expect them to change overnight, but at that moment, I felt a small sense of victory. It wasn't about the money. It was about standing up for myself, taking control of my life, and proving that I didn't need their validation to succeed. The next day, Emily came to my house. I wasn't sure what to expect, but I knew she had probably heard about the money being returned. "Olivia," she started, but I cut her off. "I don't want an apology," I said, looking at her straight in the eye. "You stole from me. And honestly, I don't know if I'll ever be able to forgive you for that. But I'm done being the victim. I'm done letting you and everyone else walk all over me. You can take responsibility for your actions, or you can keep running away. But I'm not waiting for you anymore. I'm moving on." She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. I didn't need her apology, didn't need her explanation. I had taken control of my own life, and that was all that mattered. As she left, I felt a strange mix of relief and sadness. My family, my sister, had failed me, but that was no longer something I could change. What I could change was me. I wasn't going to let their mistakes hold me back anymore. The next few weeks felt different. I started focusing more on my future, more on my own dreams. My business began to grow. I applied to schools and started preparing for my future without the burden of my family's expectations. They weren't going to define me anymore. When my mom called, apologizing again, I didn't need to say much. She told me that she was proud of me, but I knew it wasn't just the apology that had shifted. It was me, showing up for myself, for my future. I had taken back my life. And no one could take that away from me.